In this video, we're going to be installing Red Hat Enterprise Linux on VMware Workstation 15.5. First thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to light up VMware Workstation. We're going to go to create a new VM. We're going to select Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.7. We're going to give it a name. We're just going to do rel. And then we're going to say where we want to put it. So we're going to point it to our external SSD hard drive. Mine happens to be called Speedy. And we're going to create a directory for virtual machine images. I just called it VM images. And we're going to give it 2 processors. We're going to give it 4 gigs of memory. And we're going to use NAT as our network addressing. Going to take the default LSI logic and SCSI. We're going to create a new virtual hard drive. We're going to make it all as a single file, and we're going to set it to 60 gigs for our size. And we'll leave the file name. Now we want to go back in, and we don't want a printer and we don't want a sound card. Those will just be extras that we don't need. And we need to point it to our ISO file. So mine happens to be on a folder, so we're going to point there. And then finish. So now we can start up our virtual machine. Power on. And this first part is going to wait 50 seconds to boot, but you can go in there and click, and then it'll start moving forward a little faster. So this is the initial boot process, and it's going to show you everything that's booting along the way. When it's doing this particular check, it is possible to hit escape to bypass that, but I recommend the first time you're installing it to let it run. And now it comes up to the base configuration screen. We're going to select English. And we're going to go in and set the rest of our settings so that everything is going to work. So we want to do our software selection and our installation source. So for our installation source, we're verifying that we are pulling it from that ISO image. For software selection, we want to select Server with GUI. Like Windows, if you don't select that, it will install a GUI-less environment, and without the GUI, you may be a little lost getting around. Where we want to install it should be already pre-checked, so we can just select Done. And that was a deselection there. We don't want that. And we want to turn off kdump for our particular setting that we're doing here. And here's where an important part, we need to give the host a name. We're going to call ours rel.local. And then we're going to go and configure our network settings. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you turn your NIC on. By default, it's turned off. Then we'll go into configure it. In the configuration, the device ENS33 happens to be what our our NIC is called. We're going to ignore IPv6, which turns it off. IPv4 should be set to DHCP. And those are the only settings that we need to worry about right now in the network, so we'll save that. And we can select Done. Make sure that you have an IP address that shows up at this point, because it is grabbing it through DHCP, so you should have a valid IP address there. Select Done. And on ours, we're still getting a warning about the installation destination. So we'll select Done on the security policy. Time zone, once we have our networking working, let's set that to Chicago. And network time is turned on, so it's going to check time servers to actually validate its time. And just start going through, and okay, we still have a flag for installation destination. So we want to make sure it has a check mark there so it actually has the destination. Now our begin installation box has lit up. While this is installing, we want to install the root password. Very, very important password. This is the one how you're going to be managing the system. Do not forget what root password you set, because if you do, you're going to be unable to actually work with this machine. So set a strong, which is uppercase, lowercase, and a symbol passwords when you're setting these. If you don't set a strong one, it will require you to go through multiple times to try and set that. Second one you need to do is set an actual user. Make sure you make that user an administrator, otherwise things are going to be much harder in future labs. So set your password. Again, make sure it's a strong password, which is uppercase, lowercase, and contains a symbol, and at least 8 characters or greater. And we can select done. And we just have to wait for the rest of the install to finish. But you need to make sure you set your root password, document it, create a user, document it, make sure they're a member of the administrators group. Once that completes, hit reboot. And it'll take just a minute for it to finish the boot process here. And we're going to log in as the users that we created. Oops, sorry. So on this screen, what we have is we have the license information, network host name, and subscription manager. First thing is a EULA that we just need to say, I accept this license agreement, and then done. Our network, we are connected. You can see down there that it actually is connected. And now we can actually go to our subscription manager, and we're going to go and actually register. We're going to use the login is your Red Hat subscription, not your email address. It may be the same, most likely it is not, and then the password associated with that. And this is so that we can get updates on our Red Hat Enterprise server. Otherwise, we can't get updates unless we actually have an active subscription. So we add our password. And select register. It's going to ping the Red Hat servers, make sure we have the ability to actually register a machine with our account. Okay, and then it shows that we have a physical 1 subscription, which means we can have unlimited virtual machines on that one physical box. And then it says registration is done. Now that we have that done, we can say finish configuration. Now we're going to log in as our user, put in the password that we set earlier, sign in, and it'll walk us through a couple more settings, pretty much taking the defaults, and we're ready to go. And we can close that out. That was just sort of a quick and dirty way to find out what's going on. Going to Systems Tools, we can go to Subscription Manager, and we're going to have to elevate our privileges to root, so putting our root account password in. And also we can double check that we're connected through our network connection, so it's under Network, and that we have the network connection turned on, and that we have a valid IP address. And that it's connecting automatically, so that means when you start it up, it'll connect. That's the identity of our NIC. It's using IPv4 DHCP. IPv6 is turned off. And we have a valid IP. Okay, if everything is working properly, now we should be able to load Firefox and be able to get to an external website. And the default external website is going to be loading up the Red Hat site. So if for some reason, when you went through your install process, you did not set up your network, and you have to go through and register So let's say we had gone through and we had accepted the license information, but we did not. So we're going to go accept the EULA and select done, which then gives us the finished configuration, but we didn't actually turn on the network or configure the network. So then it will allow us to log in, but we don't currently have an active subscription at this point, so we won't be able to get updates. So what we can do is, after the fact, we can go in and turn on our network and register the machine so we can get updates. So we'll go through that really quickly here. So we'll go into Applications, go into System Tools, Settings, Network, and then you see the little slider there. We need to turn that to the on position. It's from the off position. And then the little gear next to it, we'll click on that. Now we can see that we have a valid IP address. So we hit Apply. We can close that. And we're going to go back to Applications. We're going to go to System Tools. We're going to go to Red Hat Subscription Manager. We need to elevate to root, so put a root password in. Select OK. Now it's going to say that the current status of your subscription is unknown, so we need to register. Select Next. This will be your Red Hat user ID, not your Red Hat, not your what you log into Red Hat, but it's actually your Red Hat login account. Password associated with that. Select Register. And we have a subscription available for one physical machine. And we selected Attach. So now if we click to My Subscriptions, it'll refresh the My Installed Products. We now have a green saying we're subscribed, and we'll be able to get updates.